Oh dear. Okay. Come on, Grandma. Get it together. You can do it. Just hit the button. Just hit the button. Where's the button? There we go. Hello, everyone. Happy March indeed. Hope everyone is doing well. I hope you have all had a good weekend. Good start to the week. Good start to the month. Let me say hi to you guys. Hello, Sonic. Welcome in. Glad to have you with us. Hello, Nightwolf. Hello. Welcome in. Good to see you. Hello, Mage. Thank you for the 14-month resub. How has it been over a year already? I know it was a year like 2 months ago, but anyway, I really appreciate the support. Thank you. Thank you very much. And hello, Standing. Happy March. Good to have you with us. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Lickers. Und Watchers. I hope you're all doing well. I'm very drained. I'm not tired. It sure feels like it. Oh, in case you guys have not noticed, since it is now March, which I'm going to go ahead and say is spring, it's time for the new background. So we got a nice spring version of the cafe that we're going to be rocking for the next couple of months. Honestly, it took me a while to get a version of the flowers that I was happy with, but I think it came out okay. I'm pretty good with it now. I don't know. What happened this weekend? It feels like forever ago. I did get the bike ride in. That was really nice. It was a perfect day for a bike ride. I was very tired. After the stream, I think I maybe got like 3 hours of sleep or so. I did not sleep well, and so frankly, I wasn't sure I was going to do it at all. But I was like, I would regret not getting it while we had it. So I did power through, and it was a very good ride. And I was very tired afterwards. The sleep is pretty caught up now, but if I can rant at you guys for a couple minutes. Obviously, I can't get into specifics about anything, but there is a project that I've been on at work for, I don't know, a few weeks at this point.
2026 is going too damn fast. Can we please slow it down? I hardly cut some brass for cash.
That's fair. Yeah, I would not mind this month being a little bit slower. Hey, happy birthday, Night. I hope you have a very good birthday this year. I hope it is very good to you, and I hope you get lots of enjoyment and pleasure out of it. We can put the birthday song on after this. Let me go find it. There it is. No random way I can do with slowing things down. I think that's a good way to look at it. It's like, yeah, let's get out of winter. Let's be done with that, and then let's kind of take it chill. Oh, okay. Now save the rats for Saturday. Remind me then. All I want for my birthday is sleep. That's a mood and a half. So, the project that I'm working on got partially approved, and then it was unapproved, and I have been trying to get it reapproved for something like 2 or 3 weeks now, and I don't know what I'm doing with it anymore. Like, you know how I like to say, you know, we'll be working on a piece of artwork on the stream, and, you know, it'll sort of get to a point where I'm like, there's nothing really else for me to do with it. Right? That it just sort of like at some point the artwork tells me that it is done, and anything beyond that is just sort of pushing pixels around for the sake of argument, and it's not really like improving it in any meaningful way. So we're well past that point. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. I was in a meeting today and they said, use my best judgment. It's like, I've used my best judgment on it and you didn't like it. So, I don't know. We went through another round of feedback yesterday, and you know that like emotional state where you're just like so defeated your face doesn't work anymore. You just sit there staring and like you just can't crack a smile. You can't move your mouth. That was me yesterday. I was just out. I was done. I had nothing left to give this thing. I am just moving sliders and pushing pixels, and none of it means anything anymore. And I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to tell them. And it's scary because I feel like if I can't figure this out, what am I supposed to do? Right? I'm not in a position that I can push back. So I don't know. I need to talk to my team tomorrow about it, but it's been a lot to deal with. It's been really taking me down the last couple of days. It's been taking me down longer than that, but this week has just been like the breaking point. So I don't know. Honestly, like the better part of today, we had a scheduled power outage because they were doing maintenance on the lines. And so like I attended my morning meetings and the power went out, and I'm like, okay, cool. Even my team was like, yeah, just take the day. So I don't know. I took a nap. I read a book for a little bit, and eventually the power came back on. I kind of waited a little bit longer just to make sure it was, fully back on, and not like they put it on and then they have to take it down again. So I got most of the day in, but it was like, I almost wish I hadn't, just because I don't know. I'm beat up, guys. I don't know what to do with it. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's been my day. So I was trying to think if there's anything actually like exciting that happened. It feels like a lot of the headline stuff has just been really bummer lately. So I think the plan for today there was a piece of art that we were working on. People trying to deal with on the verge of getting laid off and their heads on other things. That's possibly true. I mean, it certainly wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know, like I've been at this job for 4 years, and I just feel like if I feel like I have earned a level of trust of like, yeah, this is what we can do. I feel like that should be understood as like, okay, this is what we can do, you know? I don't know. I don't know, man. It's a lot. It's annoying. It is very chaotic right now, and as we were discussing on Discord, like it's March and there have been 3 like high profile game failures this year already. You know, we High Guard announced that it's getting shut down. Ashes of Creation it blew up monumentally, just like you could see that going from miles around. There's the whole thing going on with Tuco, which certainly doesn't look good. It's not necessarily a death knell for the game, but it's not looking positive. So I don't know. I don't know. And like I get if there's pressure coming from elsewhere, but it doesn't feel good to just be like, well, I'm just kind of stuck with it, you know? So yeah, the plan for tonight basically is we had a piece of artwork that we were working on before, and then we had to shelve it because we had the Uma Musume piece that we had to get done for Lunar New Year, and then we had the piece for Valk to get done in time for her partner celebration. So I want to go back and try and we're not going to finish it up tonight, but I definitely want to sort of readdress it. So I open that one back up and see how we can do. I guess the little bit of good news is I did buy my convention ticket tonight. I had gotten the time off approved, and I didn't want to buy it until everything had sort of lined up on that end. I was like, oh shit, right, I gotta do that. So that's all set to go for Friday. Hey, Gally, welcome in. Happy March. I hope you're doing well. So yeah, that's gonna be a good Friday. And I feel like, especially this week, I really need that. So yeah, it'll be a good day off. I don't know. It's honestly really scary right now because I feel like if it's I don't know. I would like to think it's silly to feel like everything is riding on a single project, right? Hey, thanks for the 5 stream streak and congrats on getting the weekend approved. But I don't know, like I'm constantly worried about the stability. And I just I don't know. I don't know what happens if this one freaks out, you know? If they don't like it, if I can't get it done. It's a bad feeling. So I guess we'll figure something out tomorrow. Honestly, what I think I'm gonna do is ask my team if we can assign it to someone else to finish because like it's honestly getting to the point of like physical distress at the end of the day. And I don't know what else I can really do to throw at the problem. What I can do that'll make it any better than it is. So, yeah. I guess why don't we go ahead, we can jump in and get started on the drawing and kind of see where we go from there. Almost like, I guess I was looking at doing the shading to start things off. I have the original drawing open. I don't want to like look at it or focus on it too much. Just because we're sort of at a point where I really want the new version to sort of come into its own, you know? I don't know. Some people, I don't know. I see people talking about like moving around in the industry. I'm like, now? Is there anywhere even to move to? It all just feels very chaotic. And I feel very lucky that I've been able to hold the position that I've had as long as I've had it, but I think the sort of inverse side of that is that can feel very sort of stuck in that position, you know? Like if I jump off the ship, there's not going to be anywhere to swim to. I use Clip Studio Paint. I like it for the most part. There's a couple of like editing things I wish it had, but it's a good program. There we go. I wonder what subsurface tone is going to work well for Seat. I don't think red is going to make sense for her. Maybe something more like magenta? I think I'll fill it in with red and see how it looks, and then we can sort of adjust the color appropriately. I almost feel like blue would be appropriate, but that might look really weird. Mm-hmm. I was watching a video earlier talking about Metropolis, the old, I think, yeah, it's almost 100 years old. I think it came out in 1927 originally. Might be off by a couple years there. Very interesting project. I've never actually seen the movie myself. Let me pour some tea real quick. But very interesting, very like surprisingly seminal piece of work for like all of sci-fi going forward from there. It was funny looking at some of the like buildings and such, the city, skylines and such in Metropolis, and then there were comparisons in the video to like Blade Runner. It's like, oh yeah, that's basically the same building. They just like evoke the exact same structural architecture between the two movies. Obviously the designs of the androids, a lot of the like messaging. I feel like we hadn't quite developed enough of a particularly aesthetic that Metropolis could be defined as cyberpunk, but there's definitely ideas in there of that I think you could make the reasonable argument that they like went forward to inspire the cyberpunk genre. And the video kind of spoiled the entire story, but I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like if I were to watch it, I would be, that concerned with the story. I'd probably be more sort of watching it to observe the history of cinema, so to speak. So it's very interesting. It might be a little bit hard to find because, so apparently it was originally a joint project between Paramount and a German studio. I don't know what the translation or modern day values were, but at the time, like in 1920s money, it cost 5 million Reichsmarks, which was like exorbitantly expensive. It flopped. It was a disaster. And so Paramount like pulled the US release. It was a German project originally, and it premiered in Germany, and then Paramount was like, we don't want it. This thing's a dud. We're not going to bother bringing it across to the US. Just forget it. And then eventually it did make its way stateside, but it had been chopped down by like a substantial portion of the length. And it wasn't until like a decade ago that a version of the film in its original runtime was found. So be careful what version you pick up when you go looking for it, because it might be the cut down version. Apparently there was also a version, like a colorized version released in the 80s that replaced the original like symphonic score with Italian techno. It wasn't really colorized though. They just like washed the black and white in single colors. They didn't like go in and actually color restore it or anything. It's very weird. It's a very weird history on this project. Interesting, but bizarre, to say the least. Did I? What did I do? I think I didn't want. I think I lost the color. Or maybe it's just coming in very dark here. I don't know. Okay, let's bring this in a little bit heavier. We'll sort of bring the light more forward, so some of these back elements will get a bit more shaded. Good. Alright, and then right now, like I said, let's just use a normal red. And sort of bring this in along the edges. Yeah, I don't think this is gonna work on seed skin tone, but we'll see what it does. I think it's just like generally too warm. It doesn't fit her vibe. Actually, I can probably just use whatever tone I use for her temperature. Bring that in instead. Yeah, that definitely doesn't work, but we can do this. Where did I leave it? I'll get rid of that for a minute. And then let's bring this up to 100% and set it back to normal. Yeah, that'll work. Good. Yeah. At some point I need to get down and do a little bit of writing for this. We're a long way, I think, from actually implementing story stuff into the game, but I still want to... If I have a good sense of the story, then I can start actually, like, building out the stuff that we're gonna need. There's definitely various props and creatures and whatnot that we're gonna need to build and concept. Okay, 1 second, I need to do something. I'm gonna need to remember to turn it back on later, but for right now, I'm just gonna disable something. There we go. There we go. And frankly, I don't think much of the backlighting is going to reach Jordan, which is, I think, somewhat intentional. Well, not intentional, but appropriate. Look at some of the tattoos in here while I'm working at it. Well, that doesn't need to be that big. Hang on. It's the right color, but it feels weird. I think it's just the color that it's overlaying is so different from one another that it comes across as being incorrect. Nope. Okay, and then we can't really see much of the tattoos on the chest or this torso. A little bit of this one. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, and then we need a little bit more of this being visible over here. I think that does okay. I want to work on seat size once we get to the painting, but that can wait. What does this look like with different color blends? Yeah, see, color dodge kind of just kills it. I feel like it's not the right color, or not as intense as it might need to be. No, that was actually less. Of course, it might be blending things that are going on in the original that I don't know about. Drop the intensity of that down, and then we'll duplicate it. Add a nice overlay version. That's not bad. Okay. What else do we need here? There's a lot of details, particularly with like seeds, vines, and whatnot that I didn't bother including yet. I think we got most of the major details in here already. Okay, yeah, I think we're good to go ahead with the next part. Where do I want to start with this? How do I want to start with this? I think we're gonna go in and grab some of this. Hang on. I'm gonna get rid of that just because I'm like doing them piecemeal. It's not like creating the total shape, right? We need to think about sort of where we're gonna, how we're gonna say, have our vignette form, and then how we want to break it up. Areas of primary shape and disturbance. Honestly, I'm mostly just trying to calm down right now. I feel like drawing is something that I more or less know how to do. I can just sort of focus on that and get lost in it and enjoy it. Don't have to worry about anything else for a little while. Be careful with these, not to tangent with the vines that we've already set up. Hmm. I think we can have a couple of them sort of come in and break the vignette, right? And then maybe we can have this for like 70%. Just sort of continue the idea farther and farther back. Or go this like tunneling effect. No. That feels pretty good. What do y'all think? Yeah. I think the original version had more vines, but well, one of the things where more is not necessarily better, you know? Yeah, I was talking with my roommate earlier about the whole high guard thing. A damn shame, really. I don't think anyone is particularly surprised, but it still sucks that they're shutting down. I think I feel like... I don't want to put this. Studios trying to start out with a live service multiplayer title, I think are putting a lot of pressure on themselves that they really don't need to. Because live service, you know, I've rambled about that a number of times. I think it had a 45-day lifespan, which still puts it at longer than Concord, but not by a lot. Yeah, basically made it through February, most of January, and then March killed it. Or it died in March, rather. But, you know, multiplayer games, as the name would imply, need multiple people to be playing it. Preferably many multiple people. Right? And if you don't have that, 3.2 Concords, I love that that's a metric. You know, if you don't have a strong enough player base to keep it going, to keep people engaged with it, then your game dies, right? Because people try and play it. They try and, you know, jump in to play some game, and there's nobody there to play it. And so you just sit in matchmaking forever until you get bored and go play something that will actually let you play it. So, you know, if you are, even if you have pedigree, right? You know, they initially are like, hey, here's a game made by these people that made these games that you like. You know, people try and do that. Concord had the same thing of like, hey, we're a bunch of ex-Bungie devs. So, you know where we're from. You know what our track record is like. You know we've got some chops here. But it's still a new studio, right? It is unestablished. They have to get themselves into people's consciousness and convince them that they are worth paying attention to. Which is hard. It's hard in any environment. And, you know, so you're trying to convince people to give you a chance with a new studio on a new game, new IP. And you need enough people to buy in and continue to buy in to keep the multiplayer scene alive, and then give you enough money recurringly to back up the studio long term, which is a lot of gates to cross for, you know, well, it's a lot of gates to cross for anybody, but for a brand new studios, it's you're just setting yourself up for such a monumental fight. And, you know, I think Ackman was pointing out, you know, there was a statement made by one of the devs. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to perpetuate any, like, of the discourse that was going on with that. It wasn't pretty. But, you know, they mentioned at one point that the game launched to about 100,000 people playing it, which for most fresh devs, or, you know, most fresh studios, would be like, oh my god, I would love to have 100,000 people playing my game. That would be like 10,000 times more people than I expect. So, you know, if they had not had the Game Awards trailer, how many people would have noticed or cared about it? Probably, frankly, not 100,000. Obviously I don't know. We don't live in that timeline, but I think they would have had a different but still somewhat similar uphill battle of trying to get people's attention with a game that just kind of didn't do enough to do that, you know? Add a little bit of lighting right through here. So, I don't know. I guess to me, the best thing that a studio can do to give themselves, you know, a good start is to not try and make a multiplayer title. Don't make a live service multiplayer title that you are going to have to support in perpetuity. And just constantly, feed resources into. Launch a single player game. Launch a budgeted project that you can get out the door and you can get sales on, you can get a good reputation building, and then people will know and enjoy you and want to come back for the next thing. And then maybe you can look at doing a multiplayer title. Well, watch all the time players count looking like a clip. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I think there was... The funny thing is, I think there was almost sort of a successful side to the campaign that shortly before Highguard launched, there were a ton of videos that circulated YouTube of, remember this game for the Game Awards? Where is that? Right? And I think that actually did a lot to sort of bring it back into public awareness right before the launch. So it almost worked. If they had managed to, have a really solid game to follow that up, then maybe it would have been successful, but they didn't. And that, unfortunately, is kind of the end-all be-all of it, is regardless of, the hype cycle and everything and how they didn't pivot their strategy correctly, from what I've seen, the game at the end of the day was just kind of Like, they started putting in work to respond to feedback, but it's like, you guys should have done that back in, December, January. There's so much competition, I think studios have to find the niche and not do the same thing others are doing. Except that everyone is doing multiplayer live service games. That is the thing everyone is doing. And you're right, if everybody pivoted to doing single player games, then arguably there wouldn't be enough room to do that either. But one, major studios are still not going to be doing that because that's not where the huge money is. And, you can still, do a live service title down the road. I'm just saying I don't think it's a good thing to start your studio with. I think it's too volatile. There we go. Even Digital Extremes did not start with Warframe. They had a small number of other titles. Warframe essentially split off from Dark Sector, I think it was. They were working on that, and then that kind of fizzled out, and they were able to sort of pull it into Warframe. And proved to be very successful, but that wasn't, where they started the project, It took steps to get there. And it wasn't where they started the studio, more importantly. So it seems like a trap that a lot of people fall into, and maybe this is also part of that sort of phenomenon that I was considering a while back, where it's you have, these ex-AAA devs that are leaving the AAA scene, and then they form, new studios. But it could be one of those things because they've spent a lot of their AAA career working on multiplayer titles, that's what they know how to do. So then they go and try and replicate that. And it's okay, but you guys don't have the budget or the reputation or the scale to release the kind of game that you are gunning to do. You need to pivot to something that is going to be more functional and get you capital that then you can go after those big titles. I imagine if Highguard had been a single player game, maybe employing some of the same mechanics, same ideas, but you know, just something to like introduce the world and the characters and give you like a sense of investment. And then builds into a multiplayer game. Like, multiplayer games are a shit vehicle for story delivery. 9 out of 10 times. I'd say even more than 9 out of 10. Like, Helldivers is okay, right? Helldivers can sort of tell these overarching narratives of like, you know, here's the war that is going on a macro level, and then, you know, your tiny little part of it is the missions that you're doing, which don't really have a lot of narrative structure, but you can just point at it and say, I'm doing my part. And honestly, Helldivers, in my immediate recollection, is one of the more successful ones to try and do it, you know? I mean, Elite Dangerous is kind of the same thing, that they'll have like a narrative that is going on in the background, and that can influence community goals and events. And you know, you got stuff like the Thargoid War, where you know that was sort of driving a lot of the players' activity for like 2 years. But you know, it's not a story that you're playing through. And Elite Dangerous is an MMO, more or less. So, you know, that's a bit of a different rule set, I would argue. You know, I love the characters in Dota. And Arcane was arguably the best thing that Riot has ever done, right? I don't think that's much of a hot take. But you know, then you actually go play League of Legends, which one, stop, but two, none of that happens, right? You get maybe a little bit of quippy dialogue between some of the characters, but there's no narrative development. There's no storytelling in the game. You're just pushing lanes and killing towers. You know, Dota, same problem. And they had Dragon's Blood, which was okay. It was okay. It wasn't as good as Arcane, I'm sad to say. But, you know, it's like, okay, this is cool. We actually get some, like, storytelling with some of the characters. We get more sort of fleshing out their personalities and their backgrounds, and we even get some new characters that later get introduced to the game, and that's great. But then you go back and you play Dota, and you're like, where is all of that? Where is the story that I just watched? It doesn't exist. Right? Titanfall 1 like tried to do a sort of storytelling thing within the context of the missions, and it didn't pan out, which is why Titanfall 2, they were just like, here's a single player campaign, and everyone loved it. It is regarded as one of the best first-person shooter campaigns of all time. BT, my fucking goat. Like, I don't think I even appreciated it as much when I was playing it, and then I watched Coco play it a while back, and I was like, okay, no, hang on, this campaign's really good, and I love these characters. This is actually really good. So, I don't know. Certainly this is my bias. I think I find even when a game is multiplayer centric, I like having a single player component that I can sort of play more on my own terms. I don't enjoy entirely multiplayer games that I just have to get like mega sweaty every time I want to play the game. Sometimes I just want to do something chill. You know, over the weekend I played a little bit of Star Citizen. I went out and I did mining, and you know how many people I ran into? 0. It was a single player game and it was great. It was just me and the rocks. You know, I saw people chatting. There were a couple times, especially when I went back to the major hubs, that I saw other ships flying around. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's still a multiplayer game, but it didn't like impact my ability to immediately play and enjoy it. So, I don't know. I would certainly like to see more like single player components in multiplayer games. I realize that that is a major budgetary demand, but I think even major multiplayer titles help. It helps a lot, and you know, these small studios trying to get off the ground, I feel like it's borderline essential. I feel like you have to go that route because, I mean, how many fails, how many flops, not flops in terms of like bad games, but studio flops did we have last year? We had Wildgate, you know, we had the announcement of Hard Guide right at the end. There's been at least a couple other studios that went under last year. Like, you know, studios that hit their premiere title and it went nowhere. And like, I feel like I heard a few people talk about Wildgate. It's like, yeah, this game's not bad. It's actually pretty fun, but it's a multiplayer title, so there needs to be that critical mass of people. You are literally talking about stellar ignition on a social level. Yeah, it's very nice that Elite has that as an option, especially when you're trying to do the community goal and you see people raging in chat because they got sniped by some fucker in a Fertilance again. It's always the Fertilance for some reason. Apparently, I guess it's just a good PvP ship. Oh, I remember one that I pointed out to my roommate. GTA 5. The multiplayer game that gets Rockstar more money than God. Its core component, its launch component, was the single player game. Right? Here's a single player sandbox, play through the story, do all these gameplay loops, and then once you're done with that, once you have played that and you want more GTA adventure, here's GTA Online. Now you can play GTA 5 with your friends and have all kinds of crazy criminal antics, or play the stock market or walk your dog. We let you do that too. No horse nuts in this one though. You gotta go to Red Dead, except we don't care about Red Dead Online. Fuck that game. So even Rockstar, I don't know if they like consciously realized it or not, but they still led GTA 5 with single player and then migrated players into the multiplayer, and they stuck around because they were already onboarded by the single player introduction. I think if you had just like, even a franchise as well established as GTA, I think if they had put out GTA 4 and then told players, hey gang, instead of GTA 5, we're giving you a GTA MMO, I think people might have rioted. I think people would have been pissed. But instead, they gave them both, and GTA 5 has continued to be a majorly profitable title for them for over a decade? I don't remember when GTA 5 came out. And again, this is like one of the most famous franchises in the world. Now imagine trying to be just some random dude with a startup studio being like, hey guys. Guys? Where is everyone? Warcraft was able to make that work with WoW. Yes! Though I know some people do wish that we had just gotten Warcraft 4 instead. Especially from a narrative standpoint. That Warcraft fucking went places, man. I don't know. So, I think... Let me walk that back a little bit. Let me walk that back a little bit. I don't know that there were many people that said, man, I wish we got Warcraft 4 instead of World of Warcraft. Probably some, but I wouldn't imagine we're that many. I think especially in 2004 when the game launched, it was awesome, right? Because the idea was, here is the world of Warcraft, right? The world that, excuse me, you have been playing these games in. You know, the Mount, I almost said Mount Heidelin, where the World Tree was located in Warcraft 3. I'm blanking on the name. That's there. You can see it. You can't go in it. We close the zone off, but you can see it. You know, here's the Barrens where a lot of these locations, or where a lot of the game took place. You know, here's all of these locales that you have seen throughout the previous 3 Warcraft games. You can go to them, you can walk around them on your own terms, you can fight monsters and delve into dungeons and meet heroes, and it's great. You know, and vanilla WoW was just a lot of like random adventures in Azeroth. It wasn't really until Burning Crusade that they really started to establish a through line narrative that everybody was following sort of in the same pacing. And I do feel like as World of Warcraft started to take on more of the narrative weight of Warcraft, right? Like it started in Burning Crusade, and then Wrath of the Lich King introduced cutscenes. Like we had actual narrative beats that were happening as you progress through the leveling into the end game. I think there was a little bit of lamentation from some of the player base when they started to realize, like, oh, this is the vehicle that we are getting the rest of the Warcraft story through. We're not going to see a Warcraft 4. I think that's when the disappointment started to settle in. And then, of course, World of Warcraft went down that road of, well, we gotta keep the story going, so come up with random bullshit. Did you know the planet's an egg? Mazel tov. I like that. That looks good. I'm gonna jump away just because we could spend all night on the hair, and I want to focus more on the face. Or rather, what I would like to do is I want to move Seat's face around a little bit. I was thinking about this before because the positioning of the face is a little bit different from the original. I wanted to move Jordan's up to match the original a little bit, but I actually kind of like her bowing her head a bit more. I think that works well. So we're going to leave that where it is, but I do want to move Seat's face back down a little bit just because I think it gives her a bit more of a predatory look, and I like that. A little bit more sinister. Just gonna go like that. There we go. So you're right. Warcraft did manage to make the transition from, well, and I think part of why it made the transition as smoothly as it did is because Warcraft 2, well, when did they introduce BattleNet? Do not want to run to her on a dark street. Well, she wants to run into you on a dark street. And are you gonna tell her no? When did they introduce BattleNet? Was it Warcraft 2 or StarCraft? I feel like Warcraft 2 had a multiplayer mode. Did it? See, there's remastered versions. With Vanilla WoW, I always felt I was playing out your own story. See, that's what I really like about MMOs, is when I have the sandbox to tell my own story. Looking at you, Old Republic. Modes, here we go. Separate human and orc companions in standalone scenarios. Map editor allowed players to develop scenarios for use in multiplayer contests against AI components. The editor runs into the Mac and under Windows 95 or the WinG library. Okay, so there was multiplayer. There was multiplayer. I don't know if that was the full BattleNet system yet, but Warcraft 2 did have multiplayer. So multiplayer has been in Warcraft's DNA for most of the series. And then, of course, Warcraft 3 multiplayer is famous, right? Like, the modded games gave rise to MOBAs. I don't think it's fair to say that it gave rise to tower defense games as well, but there were some pretty banger tower defense modes in Warcraft 3. So, I think, to some degree, the Warcraft player base was already used to the concept of playing multiplayer, and so just having a multiplayer, like a massively multiplayer Warcraft game was like, yeah, okay. Sounds awesome. And of course, again, there is a difference, I think, a lot of times between a massively multiplayer game and a multiplayer game, right? Like World of Warcraft and Call of Duty or Overwatch or Helldivers are different scenarios, right? They have different requirements, different many things involved, and most importantly to this discussion, different expectations. So, you know, definitely a point of consideration, but it is not identical between the two. I don't know. I could certainly armchair high guard until the internet goes offline. I'm sure there will be many videos and discussions armchairing what they should have done. I'm sure they don't appreciate it. I will be very interested to see how Marathon does. Because on one hand, it seems like people are... I don't know, there seems to be some positive buzz about it now. The server slam seems to have gone pretty well. But at the same time, I don't know, it still sounds like it's a bit of a niche game, which I'm not sure if Bungie and Sony are going to be happy with a niche game. I was watching Skill Up's. He stressed that it was not a review because the game isn't out yet, so you can't review a game that isn't out. But his impressions from the server slam, and I believe he called it a competitive team shooter. He was saying the extraction shooter side of it, that, you know, is what most people are calling Marathon, didn't really feel like the crux of the game. It felt more like, you know, getting into encounters and fighting people was the focal point of the game, whereas in an extraction shooter, getting into fights is typically more of a consequence of the loot and escape gameplay loop, right? You want to go in, get your stuff, and get out, and as a result of that, you will often run into other players who are also trying to get that stuff, and they will fight you for it. Whereas, you know, he was saying to him, it felt like Marathon, a lot of what they were trying to do was incentivize fighting. And the loot and the extraction felt kind of secondary a lot of the time. It felt more like just sort of a thing to declare that you're doing, rather than the thing that you're really there for. So, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, that might actually be a good thing, right? I think in a lot of ways, Arc Raiders has really sort of captured their corner of the market. And I think Arc Raiders does a pretty good job of, you know, just having like a variety of encounters. You know, especially if you're playing solo, you're gonna get a lot more games where you're just kind of cruising through the map and you'll run into other people who are also cruising, and you might share some tidbits or cooperate to take down an arc. So I would not call Arc Raiders a chill game, but I think it's very sort of well considered in its extraction shooter element. And who knows, maybe Marathon will sort of establish itself as being the more aggressive run and gun extraction shooter. And if they do, then sort of like you were saying, there's nothing wrong with sort of finding your niche, your mountain to climb. sort of evolve into that situation and be content with it. I did see a little bit of reassurance today. So, I was saying a couple days ago, my coworkers and I were playing Helldivers, and we tried doing bugs for the first time in a while, and we went to where the major operation was going on, and we dropped onto the planet, and there are Hive Lords, which, if you don't know, imagine a sandworm from Dune and then cover it in armor plating and it spits acid. And that's close enough to what a Hive Lord looks and behaves like. We could not kill it. I don't think we hurt it. I think we just made it mad. It was kind of a Mongol situation. Like, we hit it with bombs, we hit it with lasers, we hit it with everything we could throw at it, and nothing seemed to affect it in any way. So apparently we are not the only ones that are feeling frustrated by the situation, to the point that someone in the community put out a $1,000 bet to the devs. Basically said, we challenge you to put a video, like post a video, unedited, no cheats or perks or, skewed settings on the dev side. You have to go in and play a mission, or either one mission or, a full set of 3 on the hardest difficulty and prove that this shit is beatable. And if you do that, then I, the person that issued the challenge, will donate $1,000 to a charity of your choice. I love that about Helldivers. I love that about Helldivers players, that even in the midst of this frustration, is like, let's spin this positive. Let's find a way that we can make something good out of this and not just like scream on Reddit about it. Plus, I think it puts a little bit of pressure on Arrowhead to actually like do something, because otherwise they're leaving charity money on the table, which is a bit of a bad look. So yeah, a little bit of frustration. I'm kind of glad that it wasn't, just us struggling, because like we will beat bot missions like they're nothing. And then we go over to bugs and we just immediately get our asses kicked. It's like, do we suck at the game? Do we actually low-key suck? Oh, no, it is apparently actually the game. The game is busted. Nobody can beat it. Which, I don't know. I think there are scenarios where that's okay to do, right? Obviously, like some games and will have bosses early on where it is virtually or literally unwinnable, because it is presenting you with the mountain that you will need to climb, right? Here is the story challenge. Give me 1 second. I heard a thump. I want to go check it out. Be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure nobody had fallen or anything. I get worried about those things. Well, I guess it's always kind of a gamble, right? Like, how many games has Arrowhead made? Because I know they made Magica way back in the day. Okay, so 5. They made Magica in 2011, the Showdown Effect, Gauntlet. They made a Gauntlet? The first Helldivers in 2015. So they made 4 games in 4 years. They made Magica, Showdown Effect, Gauntlet, and Helldivers between 2011 and 2015. And those are release dates, not dev dates, but you know, close enough. And then they went silent for 9 years. And to be fair, they were adding stuff to Helldivers 1. But, you know, nothing in terms of new releases between 2015 and 2024. And then they released Helldivers 2. So they kind of buck the trend because those are all cooperative multiplayer games, or at least like half of them are. Right, so there are exceptions to, I wouldn't even call it the rule, the statement that I am making, right? You can certainly try to bust out with a multiplayer title, though I would argue the expectations of multiplayer titles in 2011 versus 2025 and 26 are very different. You know, just having a casual little like peer-to-peer cooperative multiplayer title in 2011, I think flies much more easily than in the 2020s. I think you're gonna struggle a lot more now than you would back then. So yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know. To some degree, it is going to be a gamble, whatever you decide to do, right? There's going to be some amount of, well, this is what we attempted, and it didn't go the way that we wanted, and we're sorry. I'm just pulling up a little bit of additional reference, make sure that I'm getting some of these details right. Where did I save this other one out to? There you are. Look, I know I did something with you. There we go. Adding in the eyebrows definitely helps a lot. You can do the same thing with the eyelashes, start to fill this. Okay. Something feels off. What's off here? I don't like it yet. Okay, hang on. Hang on. Let's bring the bottom of the eye down a little bit so the dimple of the smile is a little bit more prominent, right? Get a little bit more of that almond shape. Do that on the other side as well. And then we're going to correct a mistake that I frequently make. I'm not treating brow like a different object, so to speak. Or not a different object, but a different plane. This needs to come down more like this. Maybe not quite that much. The brow has an actually, different dimension, different shelf than the eye. So as the head tilts down, brows are going to move at a different parallax than the rest of the head, or the eyes underneath them. So just sort of having them sit at the same position relative to the eyes, even though the head is moved, is incorrect, and I always make that mistake. Bring underside of the brow out a little bit. Actually grab this, I want to twist it a bit more. I think that's better, and then we can just sort of adjust the shape of the eye to round it out a little bit more. Because I want to keep the expression kind of hooded, right? We don't really want to bring the eyelashes up at all. If anything, I kind of want to bring them down more. I think that's starting to hit the idea. How's that feel? It's a little bit better. I think we can take... Okay, let's try and fix it by hand actually before I start just doing like copies. Let's bring the eye over a little bit more. Sort of expand its space. Better. Yeah, I don't want to make our face like too narrow. There's a certain wideness to it that I want to maintain. And start getting that right shape of the jaw is important. Move this out. I haven't worked on Jordan at all yet. We should probably pivot soon and get to work on her for a bit. I think a lot of times Seat just has such a like particular look. It ends up needing a lot of attention. Make sure that we get it right. Here, I'm just gonna copy this over. Obviously all the like flame stuff we're gonna need to rework, but just getting that eye shape will be very helpful. It sure is a look, isn't it? Yeah, this one's pretty fitting. Softly, gently. There we go. Carry this up. Alright, we're getting somewhere now. Which means we should save. Lest it explode. Yeah, I think that's looking way better. Her teeth definitely got bigger the longer I work on this project. I think I made them a little bit over large in the sketch. Like, I definitely want to cut it down a little bit, but I do like the... I like the idea that they're always visible. It's not something that she, like, shows sometimes and hides other times. It's like, no, they're just out. They're just out. They're just ready to roll. They're made for chomping. Alright. I think we got Seed's face into a pretty good spot, so let's work on Jordan, because she is now woefully behind. So let's get that figured out. I should have saved the lashes for last, but I don't know. I find for getting the lashes filled in, getting that contrast established is really important. I'm sorry. Track how our overall balance of the face is looking. If the lashes aren't there, the eyes feel kind of ungrounded to me. And once again, I don't know why I always put the hair too far out to the sides. I always end up having to like bring it back in so it properly frames the face. Recurring issue. I forgot to do a thing. Hang on. Oh, goodness. There we go. Let's give a little bit more tone, a little bit more of her hair tone. Worry too much about the hair for right now. It's mainly this framing issue that I want to bring in and resolve. There we go. All of the recent pieces I feel like haven't been able to hit the right subsurface, the right sort of light scattering intensity. I think a lot of them, the sort of the lighting, the intensity of the lighting and the effects that we've been playing with have sort of overtaken that particular detail. It's just been hard to balance it out, but I think this is looking pretty good. For now. Let's see if it stays good. Getting there. I'm gonna do one more thing. Just wash the or warm the shading up in the hair a little bit so it doesn't get quite so muddy. It's not having the effect I was expecting it to. Well, that's fine. There we go. Oh. I feel like I knew this, but they used this in the Final Fantasy 14 raid. I didn't realize this was from Automata. I guess I thought it was from Replicant. God, I love those raids. Personally, I think the Nier raids were the best ones they came up with. So far, at least. Maybe next patch. I have not done any of the Alliance raids in Dawn Trail. I heard they were... eh. I heard they were kinda eh. I haven't been back to 14 in a long time. Whenever they announce the expansion, maybe I'll jump back in a little before launch and catch up on things before diving into the new story. I don't know, playing the game regularly, I guess, you know, doing all the farming and whatnot, I just don't care. I just don't. I'm sorry. I'm not there for it. Oh, you're out of position. How did you... Okay, well, if you're just gonna make a mess, then go away. I don't know. At this point, I kind of find any game that has, like, daily login requirements or anything for progression just kind of kills it for me. I don't really enjoy dailies anymore. I don't enjoy the grind. I had like spreadsheets and everything to track my item level progression on all the classes that I played, figuring out, you know, where to get the best in slot for each class, each item slot. And at this point, I'm just like, I don't care. I don't wanna. I don't feel like it. It's not how I want to spend my time in games anymore. I'm trying to think of any games that I play lately that have dailies. Nothing really comes to mind. I don't know, they're just all really fun, you know? So rarely, anyway. Put this in a little bit. Nope. Alright. Certainly coming along pretty well. Admittedly, the eyes are actually pretty small. Like, we're zoomed way in to see them this close. There. Good. No shrimping. No shrimping. Let's make the nose shadows very strong. I feel like I need to ease back on that a bit. Ow. There we go. Almost got it. I think the size is just a little bit too small. Here, let's flip the image really quickly and double check. Logic check. Sanity check. Maybe not quite as much as I thought. Actually, yeah, it's pretty good. Bring it down a little bit more. We'll just sort of round out the shape as we have it. Yeah, it feels pretty good. I think what I would like to do though is bring this down a little bit more. Kind of like that. Kind of round this out like so. And then we can bring this over a little bit. Perfect. Get out of here. Get this out of here. We don't want it. We don't need it. Clean, sparkling foreheads for days. Okay. Go ahead and flip it back. Rather than be too concerned with the individual tassels of Jordan's hair, let's sort of focus on the macro shape for a bit first, right? What is happening here? So, what? There's a bit of a weird overlap happening between the arms and the shoulders, or the arms and the torso. I think we just need to fill this out more like that. Yeah, it seems fine, but I think Jordan might be a little wide. I think we can bring it in a little bit. Kind of like that. Just sort of narrow it down a little bit so the arms feel a bit more like they're overlapping the torso or folding in front. Maybe like that. Yeah, that seems okay. There we go. Good. You can kind of fill this in like so. And then a few areas where the fabric is sort of getting bunched between Seat's fingers, it'll sort of pop out like that. So a little while back, one of my friends reached out to me, asked me to just sort of throw together a quick little flag design for Cinco de Mayo. He just wanted to make something as like a little social little thing to put outside, invite people over. So he was just like, hey, can you throw something together real quick? So I did, and I think it was pretty cool. Oh, speaking of devil, enough. Welcome in. Welcome in. Happy Choomsday. I hope you're doing well. I was just telling chat about the thing that I threw together for you, and I feel terrible that you... So normally what I will do is send a screen grab of the thing that I am doing and get feedback from it. So that was not supposed to be the final version. God, well, I'm glad you liked it that much. But yeah, I'm sorry, I should have communicated that better. I hope Thursday goes well. Hope you enjoy it, and I hope March is off to a good start for you. I'm never going to draw these lines exactly the same twice, and you know what? That's okay. There we go. I need to sort of split the shape up so the rat makes more sense. So a little bit more. We can knock the rest of this down because I don't think it should be that intense. Comparing the upper sleeve to the lower sleeve, I'm wondering if it's a bit too big. I think we can knock this back a little bit more. Just to sort of balance the two proportionally a bit better. Something more like that, perhaps? That seems pretty good. Now the one thing I'm sort of looking at, considering, want to double check. How's the lighting feeling overall? I'm wondering if we can push this a bit more drastically. Get a little bit more mood in. I feel like it's a little neutral at the moment, which, you know, is very legible. It's always a good thing. But I think it needs a little bit more intensity in some places. to really sort of sell it. Though I find it is easier to, I don't know, I guess mentally it's a bit easier to knock something down than it is to brighten it up. Okay, let's leave the vines for later. We can come back to those. You know, unless there's a really strong cue, something I need to fact check. I'm trying not to look at the original drawing anymore. I really want to sort of take what we have and evolve it the way that we know how now, rather than try and, you know, perfectly recreate what we had years ago. The whole point is to see how far we've gotten since then, not to just do the same thing over. Yeah, the original concepts for Seed that I had were much more, like the first couple of passes were much more like motherly. Much more friendly. In appearance anyway. I think sort of digging into some of the inspiration later got her more like aggressive and antagonistic, which is how she sort of evolved into the form that we have now. Okay, I see what's different. I think the big sort of difference in feeling is that I think the lighting that I had in the original version is like much cooler. It's much starker, and I think is trying to sort of get that nighttime feeling across, whereas this feels more sort of neutral. It's more albedo. I don't hate it though. I think it works well enough. I think a lot of the later drawings I sort of aired more towards letting the albedo through, even though the whole game takes place at night. Just because, like, we can find other ways to sort of make it clear to the player that it's nighttime without washing everything in blue tones, right? Sort of that same problem that movies run into of like, okay, we want to shoot a night scene, but we don't want to actually shoot it at night because the lighting is gonna suck. So we've got to figure out clever ways to give the implication of it being nighttime without actually having to deal with the challenges of it being in the dark. We are actually missing a little detail in here. Let me see if I have. Can I grab something I can use? No, because it's not in this drawing. God damn it, where did I put it? Do I have a version that does have it? This? Yes, there we go. Admittedly, this is almost no different. And pull the lighter tone. Use it in a few places. Try to go back and forth. I forgot the trim along her dress. Good. Okay, let's knock some of this back just because it's going to be such a pain in the ass to try and work around all of it, right? That'll do. Well enough. I'm actually going to come back to that in a little bit. So what we can do, just sort of on the subject of that cooler lighting, is I didn't do a highlight layer before we started this. I did not include that because I was very silly. I don't know what is going to get me the effect that I want, but this seems like a good place to start. We can put a little bit along her forehead and then sort of down up to her nose. And a little bit along her dimpled cheeks, like that. Actually, here, you know what? Let's blow it up a little bit because we can just mess with the opacity. And then Jordan. Get a little bit of this in here. Little ba-bam. Little ba-bing. Right through there. A little bit across the back, like so. So. Okay. That looks better. So let's just knock that down to like 70%. And then do an additive layer. Sort of go through the middle of it. And add the more sort of like hard, you know, sharper highlight. It's a bit stronger. Yeah, something like that. Okay, that's not gonna work. So we just gotta keep it as is, I guess. Okay, here's what we can do. So we're gonna do the two of these. And we're gonna route that into the prep layer. Just for prep group, just to keep it nice and organized. And then you two, we can merge in. Or not. What did I do wrong? Oh, I see. I need to merge that. I need to clip it. And then we go. Okay, there we go. There we go. I did it. There we go. Yeah, I think we can pull the shading up on her face a little bit. Her hair frames it so much. A lot of it is going to be occluded in shadow, right? And then we can just kind of smooth some of this out. I feel like a bit of an outlier sometimes. I liked Nier Automata. I thought it was a good game. I quite enjoyed it. I don't feel like I went as nuts over it as a lot of people seem to. Like, I really loved the soundtrack. I thought the gameplay was pretty good. I thought the story was good. It felt rushed at times, and I definitely did not try to 100% the game. I didn't do all the quests, get all the endings, collect all the things. But I don't know. I feel like if that's what you need to do to really experience the story, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. That should not be a requirement for getting the experience of the game, you know? Like, I didn't try and speed run it or anything. I just didn't do a completionist run because that would have taken forever and required, like, basically having someone to guide me through the game because It sure doesn't try and show you where everything is. So, I don't know. I liked it. I just feel like people go nuts over it. I'm like, I'm not that crazy about it. You know? These eyes got kind of fucked up. Let's clean this up, because I do not like where it's sitting. The shape got really messy. We're trying to make sure we get both of them more or less lining up right. I think this one trails a bit too far to this. Yeah, that feels better. Good. Okay, I say good, but I'm not happy with it. I'm never happy. Okay, so I think the two things. I like this one more. I think the shape is a bit better. So I do want to move it a little bit closer because she's a bit 1,000-yard stare at the moment. I'm gonna sort of slide that over like that. And then we're gonna flip it like that. We can drop it in. Okay, that feels a bit better. Having that gap underneath the iris, right, to sort of elevate it so she's looking more forward, not quite so level, is important. Helps a lot. There we go. Okay, that's feeling better. And then we can just close this off. Good. 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 Alright, I like where this is going. Make this a bit bigger. Good. This was a bit of a trust the process drawing because there's definitely a lot of stuff about it that I laid down. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Figure it out later. I think we are. I think we are figuring it out. I do find it funny, sometimes I'll have drawings where I'm like really not feeling the initial setup. But it's just like TTP. And then there are some drawings where the setup process goes really well and I'm feeling really good about it. And then we just end up struggling with it for a while. Like it's never black and white how a drawing is gonna go. Even if I drew it in black and white. It's a little artist humor for you. I'm sorry, I'll go. Hello, Jack. Happy March. Welcome in. Hope you're having a good week. What is this doing? What is this doing? Okay, there we go. A little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. A little bit better. Okay, and then kind of a similar problem here. I want to split this shape up just because it feels like the vine is getting too thick. I want to have more variation in the form. Did you use the right shape, right color? There we go. Because the painting's going pretty well. Like I said, pleased with how it's progressing. We're gonna have to put a lot of work into the vines and everything, but I think we're getting some nice colors going. I need to mess with Seat's head though. It looks way too tall for where the face is positioned. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Beyond that, it's going. I'm having a bad time at work, and it's bringing down my mental. I'm gonna have to figure out something to do about that tomorrow. Okay, so let's put that down there. It's annoying because outside of work I feel like things are going well. It's just it's so mentally destructive that everything else just kind of takes a backseat to it. That feels a bit better. You can sort of slope it back out a bit. I just want to get that sort of inward cut as well, you know? Yeah, okay. And then we can sort of billow the hair a little bit more, add some sections along here. I don't know if we're gonna finish this on Saturday. Maybe. Maybe. It'll probably carry over into next week. I was very happy with how much Valk liked the piece that we did for her. I was honestly kind of stun-locked when she saw it. Just like, mission complete. One of the people asked me if I accept commissions, and I sent them the price guide, and then I never heard back from them. So, whoops. It was very cool. I don't know. It makes me happy to know that the things that I do make people happy. Yeah, I'm not gonna set this as a hard goal or anything, but just a thought that occurs to me. I want to get the game out before it's time to do a third version of this. Like, if it takes... I want the game to be done before, like, we hit the same distance in time between when I did the original version of this drawing and this current one. Which gives me a good few years. But that time could also fly by, so we gotta look sharp. But who knows, maybe when it's finally time to release the drawing, I'll do one more version just to be like the launch promo piece or something. The cover art. Maybe we'll just lean into the poetic repetition. I don't know, if we can maintain a good clip this year, I feel like we'll actually be in a good position that we can look at releasing the game. I think it's overly optimistic to say next year, but maybe within 2 or 3. That big hurdle that we're sort of wrestling right now is getting into production, right? Because a lot of the gameplay is there. I think it still needs to be refined, but it's there. And then we need to get a pipeline for animation figured out and sort of build out some of the core, game systems. Make sure that like save states and everything work, how we're gonna do the cutscenes. Need to figure out game design, so that's gonna be a wrench and a half by itself, but once we sort of solve all those questions, which makes it sound way simpler than it is. If we can sort of figure out like what our process for level design is going to be, and how we're going to animate the characters and do the cutscenes, that's kind of it. Like, I know, on one hand it's like, oh, so it's just like 3 or 4 things to figure out, and on the other hand it's like, yeah, those 3 or 4 things are like 80% of the game. But I don't know, those are also the things that like I don't have sort of a standing background in. So if I can figure those things out, then like we have a plan for pretty much everything, which is big. Then it just becomes a matter of doing it. It's a work in progress. It definitely is. But if we can have a plan, if we can have a roadmap for the work, that's going to be a huge step towards actually seeing it to completion. Because if there's just a bunch of faffing about, well, we'll do this and we'll try this and we'll mess with this and we'll play with this, it's like, yeah, it's never going to get done. But if we actually know what we're doing and how we want to do it, then there's a chance that we actually see it through. I remember a little before I started streaming, I was working on the game and, sort of talking with some friends about it, and you know, some of the stuff that I wanted to do. And one of the friends sort of pulled me over into DMs, was saying that, you know, they had tried to do a similar thing with a project that they were working on, and they saw that I was doing sort of the same. I was going the same route that they did, which was basically just sort of treading water on the project forever. Right? I didn't have a plan, a clear plan on how to finish it. I was just sort of working on it. You know, they basically were saying, like, not to give up, right? But it's like, if you do want to do this, you need to step it up, right? There needs to be a more concrete plan. There needs to be a road, a way forward to actually see it done. It was a reality check, right? And they were totally right. They were totally right. And that was honestly sort of what kicked a lot of this into gear. Because I was kind of, like, I did do a little bit of job hunting and ultimately got the job that I have now. But the other thing that I was sort of looking at, I was like, okay, well, I need to do something to sustain myself if I'm going to continue to work on the game while I'm working on the game. So what options are there? It's like, well, I can do freelance work. I can look for freelance work, and if I'm gonna do that, then I might as well try doing this whole streaming thing that's super popular during the indoor times. And that led us here. And then after many delays and stumbles and pitfalls and fuck-ups, we're back to working on the game. That's true. There's always something waiting to happen. I think that's where the value of learning failure comes from, because at some point there's gonna be a fuck up. There's gonna be something that doesn't go according to plan, and then you have to go, well, now what? Oh god, we have to do flowers at some point. It's always these fucking flowers that throw me for a loop. Well, we'll save that for next time. Save that for Saturday. What am I? I'm forgetting something here. I'm blanking on something. What am I blanking on? Oh, eyebrow. I turned the time lapse for this on, right? Yes, good. I'll be very upset if I forgot this one. I think it'll be really interesting to play back through. There we go. Go ahead and knock the upper arm more into shadow, just to sort of recede it into the background. More like that. With the forearm. Take center stage. Speaking of life being a journey, it's one of my favorite songs. Okay. So yeah, still a few areas left to clean up, right? But I think it is coming along very well. There actually isn't a tangent in here. It looks like it from a distance, but if we clean it up, it's fine. Just need to put a little extra love and care into that spot. We'll, fill out the rest of Jordan's sweater later, so it'll look better. Alright. I think that's where we're gonna have to leave it for tonight. I know it's like a couple minutes early, but that feels like a good stopping point. We can pick it up next time. Oh, excuse me. I think it's good progress. I think we got a lot of it filled out. Still a few areas to clean up. But I think we got a lot of the core stuff resolved, or set up at least. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. And thank you everyone for being here. I'll go ahead and shut down the YouTube stream. Everyone say goodnight to the VOD squad. We go find somebody that we can rate. That's the wrong mouse. Alright, bye-bye YouTube!